Hey, my friend, for everyday cyclist, it's Graham Street. I'm the owner for CycleCore, and today I'm going to give you a quick lesson in how to connect your cadence and muscular endurance or tension to create more power. Bear with me here. This is a really important lesson. I'm going to hop on my indoor trainer. You're not going to be able to see me during the video, but you're going to see a display of real-time power and cadence and heart rate analysis as I'm on the bike. So in the top left corner there, that number 40, it's going to start to work up to 100, 120, so on and so forth. That's my current power that I'm producing into the bike. The upper right-hand corner, that's my heart rate, 101, and you're going to start to see that climb as I begin to add more tension and more power to the bicycle. Just below that, that 96, 95, 97 number, that's my current cadence, okay? Now what I'm going to show you here is how in one specific gear, with a change in cadence, and how dramatic an increase in power is going to happen here. One of the big things that we try to work on with my Cyclo 90 training is building muscular endurance, your ability to create more tension over time, okay? And link that with what we call neuromuscular performance, and in this case, in direct relationship to your cadence output, the ability to produce faster RPMs for longer sustainability, and more importantly, over a lower heart rate. The objective here is to become more efficient on the bike. I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. When you think about your cadence, let's try to think about it right now for this lesson as a fixed gear environment. I'm going to move myself to a 50 in the front, my large ring in the front, and I'll move myself to the 17 in the rear. Now, as a result of that, I'm in a one fixed gear ratio, correct? I only have one gear to play with. Watch what happens when I move to 80 RPM, which is, let's say, my baseline right now. What's my wattage? About 250 watts, give or take. My heart rate will begin to climb as I maintain that effort output. You'll see that the heart rate lags behind the power. Okay, it's going to be a big objective here in this lesson. So as I maintain 80 RPM, I will continue to stay fixated between 240 and 250 watts. Not bad. Now let's say hypothetically that I stayed in that exact same gear, 50, 17. The gear ratio changes nothing. And I decided to simply increase my RPM range from 80 RPM up to 90 RPM. So a 10 RPM jump in my cadence. What do you think is going to happen to the power? Well, look at that. It goes up from 80 to 90 RPM, and I jump from 250 watts to about 310, 315 watts. You see how dramatic that is? It's a 10 RPM jump, no change in gear, and about a 60, 70 watt jump in power. And again, I've changed nothing. Watch how my heart rate there, real quick, as you're paying attention to the upper right-hand corner, it took a while for my heart rate to respond. This is where many of you that are using heart rate only are really missing out on huge opportunities to understand just how efficient or non-efficient your body is under tension and load, because the heart rate is not indicative of just how much actual power is going into the bike. And that's a big lesson for a lot of us. And I know it's confusing, but your body does not respond as quickly as the power will. Power will be immediate. Once you increase revolutions per minute, or once you increase your gear ratio, you will see a jump in power. But you will see a stagnation or lag off in your heart. Now, look what happens when I jump from 80 to 95 RPM. I've now jumped to 350 watts, okay? That's a monster jump. All I've done is add what? Another 5 RPM. So we went from 80 to 90, from 90 to 95, and now I'm at about 350 watts, give or take. Now look at how my heart rate is still stagnating. It's lagging behind. It's not showing immediate effects of the power. Even now as I back it down back to the 80 RPM and power drops back off to 230, 240, look at my heart rate. You see how there's an after effect? And again, this is where if you're only training with your heart rate, it becomes a bit of a problem to truly understand how much power is going out at any specific time. Because even though I've dropped down to zone 3 power for me, I'm still at almost zone 4 heart rate to recover. Very interesting situation, isn't it? One of the reasons I'm showing you this lesson is that it's imperative that if you want to build speed, you want to build power, you want to build your cycling performance, we have to build the muscular endurance to maintain larger gears for longer duration, okay? And the second thing is to be able to maintain a higher RPM at those higher gears. Because when you combine the two together, my friends, you combine a higher RPM, let's say 3, 4, 5 RPM higher, and a larger gear, guess what happens? You just got about 1 to 2 miles per hour faster on average for any given sequence. Now look at here, I'm going back to 96, 98, 99, 100 RPM, still in the exact same gear, no change. I'm now at 400 watts here for that range, between 380 and 400. Again, that's now a 20 RPM jump in the exact same 50-17 gear. Look how my heart rate begins to now tickle over 160. And then as I back it back down to the 80 RPM range and power drops off literally by almost half, look at my heart rate. You see how it's still lagging behind the massive drop-offs in power. Now, what we're looking to do to train you in Cyclo 90, some of my workouts will be high muscular endurance driven. Other ones will be very high neuromuscular driven. Other ones will be focused on zone 3, zone 3 plus, zone 4, zone 4 plus, zone 5, zone 6. Why do we have such a huge plethora of ranges within our training? Why do we have some things like I'm moving to right now, which is the granny gear? I'm going to move to the small ring in the front and a much larger cog in the rear, which of course makes a very small gear, if you will, or a very small gear ratio. That smaller gear ratio forces me to have to raise my RPM. I'm now over 110 RPM. I'm going to give you a quick lesson on what happens when you're in a small gear, okay? And you begin to dramatically raise RPM, just how much power can go up. I want you to watch me for a second. I'm at 112 RPM. 34 in the front, and I would assume probably 21 in the back. I'm only at 150 watts, but look at my heart rate. You see how my heart rate is still elevated, even though I'm producing literally 1/3 the wattage I was just doing to get it to that number. Watch what happens when I go over 120. And as I begin to tickle this up further, up into the 130s, watch how my heart rate will begin to climb, even though power is only going up marginally. This is a good lesson for those of you that are trying to learn about spinning faster. Now look at about 165, 140 plus watts and how I jumped all the way up to 360 watts of output. You've seen here, now watch my heart rate. See how it's jumped way up and I'm back down to only 1/3 of the total power to try to recover. Is this starting to make sense to you? Are you starting to see the link between muscular endurance, meaning high torque or high tension output, raising the RPMs based on that tension, okay? So if I can rev up faster in the same gear, okay, I can create more power. Conversely, if I go to a smaller gear, okay, the granny gear, quote unquote, and I begin to rev that up, I can still create more power. However, it's at the expense of my cardiorespiratory system. And this is why in my Cyclo 90 training, we spend so much time going back and forth between technique, various different techniques to make you more efficient, increasing your cadence, increasing your range of cadence, and of course, producing more core strength, more cycling-specific core power to create what? More muscular endurance. Because again, when you create more muscular endurance, the ability for your body to handle a larger gear for longer duration, and you can sequence faster RPMs. We're talking only a couple RPMs. So if your base RPM is 85, and we can get you up to 88, 89, 90 RPM, and you're in the same large gear, you just got literally 10, 15, 20% more powerful by just becoming more efficient in your RPM ranges, your cardiorespiratory fitness, and of course, your muscular endurance. This, to me, is a very simple understanding of the everyday cyclist and how to get more strong and powerful. It's this understanding that helps us progress. And those of you that are using my Cyclo 90 base program and then moving into the in season, the whole point here is to get you in bigger gears, okay, bigger ratios at a higher RPM with less effort output on your part. So the whole point is to get you in that. See how now I'm at 270, 280, and look at my heart rate, 149, 150. This is the bread and butter here. I should be able to maintain that 280 to 300 watts at only 155 beats maximum for basically on paper forever. As long as I've got enough food and water, I can do that ongoing. And that's the end result we're looking for to create that zone 3 plus power. But to do that, we have to go over all the sequences we just went through. My friend, I hope these tips have been helpful. This is the centerpiece of my Cyclo 90 training. You can visit me at cyclocore.com for other tips and videos, of course. If you haven't started with me yet, you can get started with Cyclo 90 Base. I will get you riding at least 15% more powerful in only 6 hours of training per week and 90 days, guaranteed.